Welcome back to Demolition, Worker, where the raging inferno has finally been suppressed, but our crew faces a terrifying new environmental nightmare. The thick black smoke slowly clears from the massive steel hull, revealing dangerous structural fractures along the fragile waterline of the vessel. Dark, toxic crude oil begins seeping steadily from these deep cracks, bleeding out into the pristine blue waters of the surrounding ocean. This catastrophic leakage poses an immediate and deadly threat to the incredibly sensitive marine ecosystems located all along the beautiful Iranian coastline. Every single second counts right now as the heavy black sludge expands rapidly across the surface of the previously untouched deep sea. Emergency response teams quickly realize that traditional firefighting methods are completely useless against this rapidly spreading and highly toxic underwater chemical threat. The brave engineers urgently gather inside the command center to formulate a desperate plan to stop this massive ecological disaster from worsening. They decide to rapidly deploy an extensive network of specialized containment booms to isolate the leaking vessel from the surrounding open waters. These heavy-duty floating barriers are specifically designed to trap the floating oil and prevent it from reaching the vulnerable coastal shores. Workers at the nearby port frantically begin loading kilometers of bright yellow boom segments onto fleets of high-speed response boats nearby. Powerful cranes lift massive spools of the thick yellow material, carefully lowering them onto the decks of the waiting marine transport vessels. The roaring engines of the speedboats echo across the harbor as they quickly depart the docks and race toward the stricken ship. Slicing through the choppy waves, these agile vessels carry the absolute last line of defense for the fragile ocean environment right now. Approaching the disaster zone, the crews immediately notice the overwhelming metallic stench of raw crude oil rising from the dark, contaminated water. The sheer scale of the spreading slick becomes terrifyingly apparent as the black film aggressively swallows the beautiful natural blue ocean surface. Coordinating over their radio headsets, the boat captains carefully position their swift vessels to begin the highly dangerous boom deployment operation immediately. The very first section of the bright yellow containment boom splashes heavily into the water, creating a stark visual contrast against darkness. Deckhands work with incredible speed and precision to unspool the heavy floating barrier while the boat slowly circles the massive leaking ship. As the boat moves forward, the yellow line extends continuously, forming a protective artificial perimeter around the source of the toxic spill. However, the notorious and powerful ocean currents of the Strait of Hormuz begin to violently push against the newly deployed floating barrier. The relentless tidal forces threaten to tear the fragile yellow wall apart before the crew can even complete the primary containment circle. Multiple speedboats must work in perfect synchronization to maintain the necessary tension on the heavy boom lines against the strong ocean currents. Connecting the individual boom segments in these rough waters requires immense physical strength and absolute focus from every single marine crew member. Standing dangerously close to the edge of the boat, workers struggle to lock the heavy metal connectors together as waves crash violently. A sudden massive swell violently rocks the small vessel, nearly throwing a dedicated engineer directly into the highly toxic black oil slick. His partner quickly grabs his safety harness, pulling him back from the dangerous edge just in time to avoid a terrible tragedy. Despite the terrifying near miss, the dedicated crew continues their exhausting work, knowing that millions of marine lives depend on their success. High above the chaotic scene, an advanced aerial drone captures the breathtaking and terrifying scale of this massive industrial containment operation unfolding. The aerial footage reveals a striking visual division between the thick black death inside the circle and the pure blue ocean outside. This thin yellow boundary is currently the only thing standing between local marine ecosystems and total environmental devastation on a massive scale. Down in the command center, brilliant marine engineers nervously monitor real-time data feeds showing sudden unpredictable shifts in the local wind. They must constantly calculate the exact ocean tide patterns to accurately predict where the toxic oil slick will attempt to drift next. Urgent instructions are quickly radioed to the boat captains, ordering them to immediately adjust the angle of the booms to intercept flow. The speedboats rapidly change direction, dragging the heavy yellow barriers into a new defensive formation to block the advancing black toxic sludge. Thick oil begins to pool heavily against the inner edge of the boom, testing the physical limits of the synthetic floating materials. The immense pressure from the accumulated crude oil causes the yellow barrier to stretch and groan dangerously under the intense ocean currents. Fearing a catastrophic structural breach, the commander orders a second reinforced layer of containment booms to be deployed immediately behind the first. Another fleet of agile boats arrives on the chaotic scene, carrying additional kilometers of heavy-duty boom material to secure the perimeter. They begin weaving a secondary protective ring around the distressed vessel, creating a crucial fail-safe mechanism against the relentless toxic tide. The exhausting physical labor takes a heavy toll on the brave workers, whose protective suits are now completely covered in dark oil. Sweat pours down their tired faces beneath heavy safety helmets, but nobody stops working for even a single second during this crisis. They understand perfectly that any minor delay could allow the deadly crude to permanently destroy the precious coastal habitats of the region. As the sun begins to set over the horizon, casting a golden glow on the water, the situation suddenly becomes much worse. A massive underwater fracture on the ship suddenly bursts wider, sending an aggressive new surge of thick oil directly toward the barrier. The dark wave hits the primary yellow boom with incredible force, causing the floating synthetic wall to temporarily dip below the surface. A small amount of toxic black sludge manages to escape over the top, threatening to contaminate the pristine waters beyond the perimeter. The secondary containment boats immediately rush to the exact breach point, deploying specialized absorbent pads to quickly soak up the escaped oil. These highly effective white pads rapidly turn completely black as they aggressively pull the harmful chemicals directly out of the ocean water. Meanwhile, the primary boats rev their powerful engines, pulling the main boom line tighter to raise its profile above the crashing waves. The dangerous maneuver successfully elevates the barrier, completely stopping the terrifying overflow and restoring the integrity of the primary defensive containment line. Night finally falls over the Strait of Hormuz, plunging the massive emergency containment operation into an eerie and highly dangerous total darkness. Powerful industrial searchlights from the surrounding boats cut through the thick night air, illuminating the bright yellow booms and the dark oil. The striking visual contrast is even more dramatic under the artificial lights, highlighting the absolute severity of this ongoing marine ecological disaster. Working in the dark adds a terrifying new level of extreme danger to the already incredibly risky, physically demanding containment mission. Crew members must rely heavily on their extensive training and clear radio communication to avoid tragic accidents in the pitch-black waters. The relentless roar of the boat engines and the crashing ocean waves make it incredibly difficult to hear urgent commands and warnings. Despite these overwhelming challenges, the dedicated teams managed to successfully connect the final segment of the massive secondary outer containment boom ring. A loud cheer of pure relief erupts across the secure radio channels as the protective circle is finally closed around the ship. The leaking vessel is now completely surrounded by two solid rings of heavy-duty floating barriers, successfully trapping the massive oil slick. Engineers back in the command center carefully review the latest drone thermal imaging to confirm the absolute integrity of the containment perimeter. The glowing thermal screens clearly show the warm oil securely trapped within the designated boundaries, proving that their desperate plan actually worked. However, the exhausted crew knows perfectly well that this successful containment is merely the very first step in a much longer battle. The massive amount of trapped crude oil must now be carefully extracted from the ocean's surface before bad weather destroys the booms. Specialized skimming vessels are urgently dispatched from the coastal port to begin the incredibly tedious process of vacuuming up the toxic sludge. These unique ships feature massive mechanical arms that slowly sweep across the contaminated water, sucking the thick black oil into internal tanks. The skimming operation is agonizingly slow, requiring absolute precision to avoid accidentally damaging the yellow booms that hold the oil back. As the first rays of morning light break over the horizon, the true devastating scale of the massive spill becomes fully visible. The once beautiful blue ocean surface is now a horrific, swirling nightmare of toxic black sludge and highly dangerous floating chemical debris. But thanks to the incredible bravery and rapid response of the Marine crews, this terrible devastation is safely contained within the circle. The sensitive coastal ecosystems and beautiful beaches of Iran remain completely untouched by the deadly oil, saved by that thin yellow line. Local fishermen watching from a safe distance feel a profound sense of deep gratitude for the brave workers protecting their vital livelihoods. The complex cleanup operation will likely take many long weeks of exhausting continuous labor to restore the area to its original state. Every single drop of the spilled crude must be carefully removed from the ocean to ensure the long-term safety of wildlife. Marine biologists arrive on the scene to carefully inspect the surrounding waters, searching for any signs of tragic wildlife contamination or distress. They are incredibly relieved to find that the local fish and seabird populations have successfully avoided the highly toxic containment zone entirely. The heavy yellow booms have performed their critical job flawlessly, acting as an impenetrable shield against the relentless spread of environmental destruction. The damaged cargo vessel still sits helplessly in the center of the dark pool, waiting for specialized salvage teams to extract it. Future episodes will definitely explore the incredibly complex engineering required to safely tow this massive, broken steel giant back to the shipyard. But for today, the absolute worst-case scenario has been successfully avoided through brilliant engineering, quick thinking, and incredible human physical endurance. The dedicated crews on the speedboats finally take a much-needed moment to rest, watching the mechanical skimmers slowly do their work. Their faces are covered in dark grease and heavy sweat, but their eyes clearly show the immense pride of a job accomplished. They have successfully fought back against one of the most terrifying forces on Earth and managed to protect our precious natural oceans. The stark contrast between the contained black oil and the surrounding pristine blue water will forever remain a powerful symbol of resilience. It serves as a constant reminder of both the extreme dangers of industrial shipping and our incredible human capacity to prevent disasters. As the recovery operation continues smoothly, the massive floating yellow barriers stand strong against the continuous push of the powerful ocean currents. This incredible technological achievement demonstrates exactly why specialized emergency response teams are absolutely essential for maintaining global maritime safety and environmental protection. The ocean is safe for now, but the brave men and women of this elite unit will always remain on high alert. They are always fully prepared to face the next massive industrial disaster whenever and wherever it might strike across the vast oceans. Thank you for joining us on this incredibly intense journey into the dangerous world of massive maritime disaster containment. and environmental protection. We hope you enjoyed this thrilling episode, so please subscribe and we will see you next time on the Demolition